Hey folks, Adam here. And if you like Las Vegas, you're probably pretty interested that there's a place on the other side of the world that has 6 times the revenue in a tiny little 12-mile by 12-mile city. So let's go ahead, we're gonna check it out. We're gonna kick it off right about now. So I've got my notes ready and I've really tried to do a history of Macau and why Macau is beating Las Vegas, significantly beating Las Vegas. We're gonna give you the history, and it's kind of a history for dummies. Now, folks, we're just starting this channel. This is gonna be one of our first videos on here, so click that subscribe button. Our other travel channel just hit 150,000 subscribers, but we're dedicated to making this one even bigger and even better. So we're giving you kind of the for dummies explanation of Macau, which is perfect for me because I'm not always that smart, but I can kind of make things very simple for you to understand. Now, Macau started off back in the 1500s. It was this tiny little fishing village. It's an island off of China, and not much was going on there. So the Portuguese came from Europe, and they brought their little trade ships and their boats, and they came in and they were like, all right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this from China, and we're gonna make it a port of our own. That didn't work well. The Ming Dynasty, that's too Ming. Ming was like, that's not happening in my China, and they kicked the Portuguese out. So the Portuguese left with the tail between their legs. They came back. They came back a few years later and they said, all right, how about we lease it from you? And the Ming Dynasty was like, okay, we'll lease this little island. No one's using it. It's a fishing village. No big deal. They made the language Portuguese and they set up this little port island, and it became kind of a warehouse. It was a place where Chinese goods would come, all the spice trade and all that kind of stuff, and then it would get shipped off to Europe. European goods would come in, and they'd get sold off to China, Hong Kong, all the different areas around there. It would get sold. So things were going really, really well. But what happens when you've got a sleepy little fishing village, look at that fishing village, is that slowly but surely sailors get there. Where there's sailors, there's gambling. So the sailors would come into port and they would, load and unload the ships, and you'd have warehouse men and everything. And what do you do in your spare time? You're gonna gamble. Now there's 3 big games. One of them, Pai Gow. Okay. There was a lottery type of game where they gave out lottery tickets. There was another one that was pretty cool. It's actually, you put a plate over a bunch of coins and everyone bets how many coins remain under the plate. You count them out and whoever has the right number wins. Kind of like that. So they were playing all these games, gambling. People will gamble over anything. And it got fairly popular. Well, what happened is it kept growing and growing and growing. And sooner than later, there was all this kind of dark, seedy gambling on the island. And the Chinese were going, you know what, we want this back. This is getting pretty gross. It's getting disgusting. And by the 1970s, Portugal had a coup of their own. And Portugal was like, you know what, we can't even manage our own country. So they started giving back all of their colonies back to the locals. And they said to China, you know what, we've got this port. We're gonna let you manage it. You can have it back. China's way bigger than us. China, you can have it back in 1999. 2000, out of time. They're gonna party like it's 1999. But the people of Macau said, okay, but we don't want, we still wanna operate independently. We're gonna be a special area to where you can still come in and out of our country. You don't have all the rules that China has, but China's eventually going to take over. In fact, we're still going to allow gambling for 50 years after you take over. So till 2049, at a minimum, Macau's going to have gambling. They're going to have an independent port. They're going to allow people to come in and out without having to kind of go into China and go through all the red tape of going to China. So it's this really busy port, all these things coming in and out, and there's gambling. So in the 70s, they went ahead and they licensed out and gave a monopoly to one guy to run the casinos there. In fact, he built this one right here. And they said, all right, you're gonna run the casino. And his name was Stanley Ho, and he's considered the king of gambling, and he had a monopoly over the casinos. Well, that was great and all, except anytime there's gambling and it starts flourishing and it starts doing really well, like they're having a lot more casino halls and gaming halls, well, suddenly these Chinese triads, these mafia types, started muscling in and saying, you know what, we want to run one of these. We want to run one of these. We want to be loan sharks. So Stanley Ho kind of unofficially licensed out different gambling halls to different triads. And each one would manage their own, and they would manage their own debts, and they would enforce their own debts however they needed to. Now, if you think about it, this was actually an interesting time for Macau because it's a port and it's right next to Hong Kong. It's right next to China. So you've got about 1 billion people who can come in and out of China. You've got a very rich country in Hong Kong, so they started to develop these ferries that would go back and forth between Hong Kong and China, and Stanley Ho managed that, and then the casinos were run by the triads. Okay, really interesting. Sounds like something out of Grand Theft Auto. All right, so where do we go from there? Time goes on, it's the 1990s, things are going well, the casino's still running very shady. It didn't look like this yet. It was kind of run-down gambling halls. Well, it's 1999 and China says, we gotta fix this, but this is a cesspool. This is my wording, not theirs. So who did they call? They called American gaming companies. That's right. They licensed out to where they said, hey, American casinos, fix our gaming. How can you make this like Las Vegas? The first to jump in was the Las Vegas Sands, and they built these massive casinos there. Las Vegas Sands came in, 4 or 5 different major gambling companies came in. Wynn, Steve Wynn, all the big gambling, hurrahs, everyone started coming in and building these casinos with the Chinese government. Now, China took over in 1999. The casinos started coming in maybe 2002, 2003. By 2006, the gambling revenue in this country, special area of responsibility, tiny little island, which is 1/10 the size of Las Vegas City, exceeded the gambling revenue of all of Las Vegas. Yeah, every casino bet in Las Vegas paled in comparison within about 3 years of Las Vegas Sands and all the American companies taking over. Now, this is kind of a weird situation because all these American companies have to keep the Chinese government happy. But the Chinese government's pretty happy because they were able to clean up the city. They pushed out the mafia, the triads, they got rid of all the violence, they got rid of the loan sharking, and they built some cool structures that were safe and secure for the locals. And you know what? The Chinese businessmen loved it. I think people forget there's a lot of money in China. There's a ton of money in Hong Kong and all those Asian nations nearby. They love gambling. We all love gambling. But those countries have a tradition and they love gambling. And they can't do it in China, they can't do it in Hong Kong. So everybody was taking these ferries, flights, and lax laws for coming in and out the border. Everybody could come into Macau, spend their money. A little bit went back to the casinos. A little bit went to the Chinese government. A little bit went to the Macau government. It's doing fantastic. So, again, China got it back by 1999. Pretty much anyone can visit very easily. Stanley Ho was kind of forced out by the late 90s, at least his gambling companies by then. The triads took over. The Las Vegas Sands and everyone pushed them out, as well as the Chinese government. And the Sands and everyone did really well. All right, so it's making billions of dollars. And I got to point out, the Venetian over there, they went ahead and they copied the American-style casinos. So where there's a Wynn Las Vegas, there's a Wynn Macau. Where's a Venetian in Las Vegas, there's an even bigger Venetian in Macau. And it's actually the largest casino with the most tables and the most gambling revenue of any casino in the world. It is the Mecca. Again, now it's 6 to 7 times larger than Las Vegas. Fast forward a little bit, and COVID hits. What? And China and a lot of countries lock down their borders and straight up say people can't go to Macau. Well, Macau, as an independent district, kind of a country, has no other real revenue. It's over 50% of their GDP is gambling. Everything is tourism and gambling related. So what do? Well, China used this as an opportunity to say, you need to make a big change, Macau. And they told those US companies that if they want to continue to have their licenses, they have to pour money back into non-gambling operations. What does that mean? That's kind of a vague statement. I'll tell you what it means. It means that the casinos came to an agreement and they poured $13.2 billion back into the city. For things like arenas, sports arenas. For things, there's a water park going in. There's a thing called a spaceship that's going in. And these hotels got even more lavish. $13 billion is a lot of money to pour into 12 square miles. Think about that. Drive 12 miles this way, 12 miles that way. That's all it is. And they poured $13 billion into entertainment. So it's actually kind of interesting because some of it is, like, I've been there. Have a Rolex store. They'll have a water park on the top of the hotel. They have the most expansive and impressive ferry and terminal and shuttle system you've ever seen. Because they had to put the money somewhere, right? You've got entertainment shows, kind of like Las Vegas entertainment shows that are running every day, that are practically empty. Water parks that are practically empty because you have to take some of the money you make off of A and put it into B. So that money coming off of casinos is being pumped back into the economy. And I gotta say, it's actually not a bad idea. I wish we did this a little bit more because the casino in Tampa, that Hard Rock, I feel like they're not putting the money back into Tampa. We're here, they're putting it into some golf courses, they're putting it back into the streets. $13 billion since COVID to be put back in there. So folks, like I said, this little area here is taking all of your wealthy businessmen, all of your wealthy businesswomen, all of your people out of Asia, China, even people from Thailand, from Singapore, from all over, come in, spend their money, and leave. Is that a smart idea? Is it a capitalist idea? Leave me your comments, let me know what you think. I hope that was a good dummy's guide to why Macau is beating Las Vegas in terms of overall revenue. I mean, Las Vegas is doing pretty darn well, but you know what? You just have more people over there. And they all come to this little island to spend their money. Folks, my name is Adam. We're talking about travel, adventures, and a whole lot of fun. Make sure to click that subscribe button. Be one of our first subscribers. We would really appreciate it. Leave me a comment. If you listen this far, I think you owe me something. A comment would be nice. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends.